Skeletor, Hordak, King Riz. For decades, Masters of the Universe fans have debated who He-Man's true archenemy is. The answer seems obvious, right? A skull-faced sorcerer obsessed with stealing Grayskull's secrets. But what if I told you that the most terrifying and dangerous adversary of all isn't a monster or a wizard, but He-Man himself? Today, we're going to dig deep into the Shadow history. A journey that begins on a lost cassette tape in 1980s Germany and ends with him becoming a threat to the entire multiverse. And more importantly, we're going to theorize how this evil version, this broken mirror of Eternia's greatest hero, might be exactly what the next Masters of the Universe movie needs to shock everyone and take the franchise to another level. Everyone here knows the core of Masters of the Universe, the force of good. The fight personified in him, against the greed of evil, represented by the skeleton, is a classic struggle that sustains the franchise. However, hidden in the depths of He-Man's mythology, there is a much more disturbing concept. A threat that not only wants to conquer Eternia but to erase it from the map, using the same face and the same strength as its greatest protector. This is Anti-He-Man, the most powerful evil being in his universe. He is not the opposite of him. As a skeleton, he is an inversion, a corrupted version. Where him inspires courage, he spreads fear. Where him protects life, he leaves a trail of destruction. Understanding where he came from is crucial to grasping why he is such a gigantic threat. And this whole story begins in a way no one expected. Let's go back in time, to the height of the Masters of the Universe craze in the 80s. While most of the world watched He-Man's adventures in a classic of film production, Germany had its own unique genre. Radio dramas, or Hörspiel. It was on one of these tapes, released by the Europa label in 1985, that the idea for Anti-Man was born. In the 40-minute episode called Anti-Eternia, a completely original story outside the cartoon's canon, they presented a crazy idea: the existence of a mirrored universe, a dark dimension where everything is reversed. In this Anti-Eternia, Castle Grayskull was a fortress of evil. And the heroes we love were terrible villains. And the leader of them all? The distorted reflection of He-Man himself. In this audio adventure, Anti-He-Man was pure tyranny. A despot who ruled his universe with an iron fist. The story ended with him crossing the dimensional barrier and invading the Eternia. We know to fight face to face with the original He-Man. The concept was simple, but brilliant. The idea that the greatest hero in the universe could have an evil twin with the same power was truly terrifying. For decades, this character remained forgotten, a curiosity known only to the most hardcore fans in Europe. He was a cool footnote, an e-cigarette, that seemed like it would never be explored again. Until, many years later, DC Comics decided it was time to bring this dark force back in a much more dangerous way. Fast forwarding considerably in time, DC Comics began publishing new Masters of the Universe comics starting in 2012, making the franchise's mythology more mature and complex. And it was in the 2019 miniseries, He-Man and the Masters of the Multiverse, that the Anti-He-Man was rescued and transformed from a German curiosity into one of the greatest threats the multiverse has ever seen. In the story written by Tim Seeley, Anti-Eternia was a dark universe, a hellish place where the Anti-He-Man wasn't just a dictator. He was a being who discovered the existence of other realities, driven by pure nihilism and a desire to prove that his philosophy of destructive power was the only truth. He began a campaign to conquer the multiverse. His method was brutal. Traveling from one eternity to another, he hunted down every version of He-Man he encountered. With each victory, he not only defeated his opponent but stole their sword of power, absorbing Grayskull's magic from that reality. His power grew exponentially. The comic shows him easily defeating the He-Man from the 1987 film and the 2002 series. even taking down some with a single blow. The anti-Hymen became so powerful, so invincible, that the few remaining Riemann in the multiverse realized they had no chance of winning. In desperation, they forged an unlikely alliance and reached a shocking conclusion. To defeat the most evil Hymen of all, they would need the help of the man who, in the main timeline, would become their greatest enemy. They needed to recruit Prince Keldor, the future skeleton. This DC revamp gave Anti-Man a depth and scale that a cassette tape never could. He became living proof that absolute power corrupts. Absolutely, a force of nature that threatened to erase all existence. Only to prove that darkness was stronger. So, let's get to the theory. Why is he the perfect villain for a sequel? The Masters of the Universe movie, scheduled for 2026, has the mission of reintroducing this world to us. The focus, of course, will be on the origin of Prince Adam, in his first major conflict with Skeletor. That's the basic premise and, to be done well, but what's the next step? Repeating the formula with a slightly stronger Skeletor would be a risk. It could sound repetitive. To shock the audience and truly expand this universe, the franchise needs a villain that raises the stakes to an absurd level. And that's where Anti-Man comes in. First, the narrative potential. Bringing in Anti-Man naturally introduces the concept of the multiverse. And this wouldn't just be to follow a trend, but to adapt a story that already exists and is beloved in comics. A sequel with him would allow for incredible cameos, like Dolph Lundgren's He-Man from the '87 movie or other versions from the cartoons. Just like in the DC saga. Second, the scale of the threat. Skeletor's power is great, but it's more or less constant. Anti-Hymen's power, on the other hand, never stops. This creates a natural tension, a desperate race against time on a multiversal scale. The hero wouldn't just be fighting an enemy, but a threat that gets stronger every second. And third, most importantly, the psychological conflict. Skeletor is a fantastic villain, but his fight with He-Man is external. It's about a castle, about power. Anti-Hymen, however, creates a personal internal conflict. He is everything that Prince Adam fears becoming. He is the answer to the question, what if I used all this power for myself? What if the strength I used to protect was used to destroy? This type of villain forces the hero to confront his own fears in a way that no other can. Of course, it's not that simple. The general public doesn't know the Anti-Hymen, so it would be necessary to explain who he is well. The best strategy would be to introduce him gradually, perhaps in a post-credits scene of the first film. Just imagine, after Skeletor's defeat, Sorceress senses a disturbance, a dark echo from another universe. And then, a glimpse of the Anti-Man on his throne, ready to begin the hunt. It would be the perfect hook for a much larger, darker sequel. The Anti-Man's journey is one of the craziest in pop culture. From an obscure idea on a German cassette tape to a cosmic villain, who makes Skeletor seem like a small problem. He represents all the potential that the Masters of the Universe still has. He's not just an evil Riemann, he's the ultimate test of the hero. An enemy who challenges not only his strength, but his morals and his hope. While the first film will give us the battle we've all been waiting for, a sequel needs to be bolder. It needs to give us a war, and there's no one better to lead the forces of darkness than the hero's own dark reflection. But that's my theory. Now I want to hear yours. Do you think Anti-Man would be the perfect villain for the sequel? Or would you prefer to see another classic like Hordak or King Riz as the main threat? Leave your opinion in the comments, and if you enjoyed this journey through the mythology of Eternia, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. Thanks, and see you next time.